God is good, and each day that passes brings us a day closer to the launch of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. In the meantime, here at this channel, we're going to talk about every aspect we can about the game, what's coming up, any news, things like that. So if you're not subscribed, please consider doing so if you want to hear more information and hear discussions dealing with Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. Today I want to touch on a particular subject that gets brought up all the time. Basically, no matter what you talk about with Pantheon, this is going to get brought up. So I kind of wanted to do a video on it, and that is that this video game, this MMORPG is very niche. It's built for a very particular group of gamers, a very particular group of people who've been begging for this kind of game basically since around 2004 to 2006. And unfortunately, we don't have anywhere to go. There is no game like this out right now. We can't even go back and play the original EverQuest the way it was actually designed and like this, because it has been changed. Once the World of Warcraft hit the market and got the millions of subscribers and everything, basically all the developers went back to their game and changed it to fit that model in hopes of drawing parts of that crowd, which obviously, in my opinion, did not work and was a reverse effect, which has caused games to shut down, bad development cycles, and all kinds of problems. But Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is trying to be niche. They're going for a very particular market of people that have nowhere to play this type of game because there isn't one. So it's kind of a renaissance, and before I go into it, I want to play this clip. This is from MMObuff.tv. I'll have a link to the entire interview down below if you want to check that out. But let's listen to that real quick.
There's almost like three different eras with MMOs. When they first came out, nobody knew what they were doing, including us developers, right? The players, this was all new to the players, and it was pretty new to us. Then came kind of the middle era with WoW and other games, and it did turn kind of into a just give everybody everything. But now I really think we're at a time where people are starting to realize that it's that's not necessarily fun. It's not necessarily something they want to do long term, and one of the big things is it doesn't create situations that are memorable. And people really want out of a game, they want to be able to talk 6 months later, 3 years later. They want to hang out with their guild mates and go, hey, you remember that, and how we barely survived and how it was challenging. So I've really been pleasantly surprised that the players are becoming much more sophisticated, and hopefully we are too.
So Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is getting away from the getting everything right now view that a lot of developers are taking with MMOs as of late. Basically what they're going for is a more group-centric, slower-paced combat, more strategic combat, and basically trying to bring the community back to MMORPGs. So, in the process of doing so, they're going to be bringing back classic mechanics and classic gameplay, including open world type gameplay. Instead of going into instances, everything will be open world. So if you're in that dungeon, then anybody else on your server that's also in that dungeon, you will see them. And that is almost revolutionary for now. That was how things used to be, and because of camping and people not getting their named mob when they wanted it, so they couldn't get their drop as quickly, and all of this, World of Warcraft kind of went into an instance mode where you could have your own individual instance, but that breaks the community. So Pantheon's trying to go back to bringing the community back and developing a game with some new concepts to the old design. So they're not just remaking EverQuest, they're not just taking the ideas from Final Fantasy XI, EverQuest, Dark Age of Camelot, and just slapping new graphics on it and calling it a day. They are trying to move forward from where MMOs left off. Now let's check out another clip where he's going to kind of discuss a little bit of that.
Also, a lot of it, the foundation of the game goes back to games that we worked on previously, like EverQuest 1. So the big thing that we're doing differently is instead of trying to make a game that tries to appeal to everybody, we are focusing on a target audience, that somebody that's looking, players that are looking for group-based gameplay. They're looking for a little bit more of a challenge. So it's kind of a, in one sense, it's going back to the MMOs, from the olden days, but at the same time, we're doing lots of new, exciting, more modern functionality as well.
So look, I mean, it comes down to this. There are plenty of options for anybody who wants to do the instance-based, quick, get your loot, do your weekly grind session or what have you in an instance with your particular group that your static, whatever. There's plenty of options for that. But there isn't an option for people who want a more community-driven game. People who want to constantly meet new people, who want to constantly be challenged, who want every day to not, that they log on to not be the same repetition from the day before, who want to have enough things and enough people and enough content from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, to where when you log on, it's not just always to do this to learn more or to get further in this one end-game raid, but instead when you log on, since there's a larger base of content from beginning to end, you're in those old games like that, you log on maybe to do one thing, and then a guildie or a friend who's still leveling up, let's just say, needs help with something, and you've already done that content. So you go back to help them. That's almost unnecessary in today's MMOs, unless they just need a tank and you're a tank to run this instance. Then they don't really need it. They have a dungeon finder. They can just solo their way all the way through, and they end up not even meeting people on the journey. So at the end game, when they get to the raid, then suddenly they have to meet people, and it's almost like there's a big gap there. And a lot of people don't even raid because of it, because they didn't meet anybody all the way up through the journey. So what they're doing for Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is they're making a game where from the beginning to the end is group-centric, okay? So that you are meeting people, and it makes the in-game more enjoyable, and it makes your day-to-day logging on more, I don't know what's going to happen today. I don't know who's going to need help, and I know I used to log on I wouldn't even have a plan. I would just log on and start reading the guild chat and getting tales from people I knew, and they would decide what I did that day. I had no idea when I logged on. I didn't have a game plan. I didn't log on like, yeah, I'm going to do my dailies, I'm going to do my weekly. That wasn't what I didn't think like that. And that's kind of what they're bringing back. They want there to be a home, and there's been a mass market of people who maybe they're playing some of these newer games, and a lot of them are just kind of hopping around because they're not satisfied with any of it. But there's a mass market, and Brad McQuaid, being the OG of EverQuest, and you could definitely say he's the granddaddy of the MMORPG genre, especially since he innovated the 3D and the raid system and everything basically that we know today. Then he got tons, he could just basically get spammed with emails, people asking, can you please bring back this kind of classic feel to a game? So he's decided to oblige it, and let's hear a clip where he discusses this exact thing.
I get emails all the time saying, hey, bring back some of the old game mechanics, and there's some people that don't like the direction that some MMOs are going, and they want a game made more for them, and I really think that's the future, that instead of having these, crazy large MMOs, I'd rather see 10 different smaller ones made for specific audiences. In any other type of entertainment, I can go see a drama or horror or science fiction, or if I go to the bookstore, you see different sections based on types of books and the different authors, and so why not MMOs? I understand earlier in their infancy, there were only a couple, but I think now's the time to start making smaller, more focused MMOs, and we're kind of trailblazing that. We're kind of one of the first ones to say, hey, that's what we're going to do.
So Brad McQuaid in that clip is talking about, instead of there being these master, huge MMOs, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, and Elder Scrolls Online, some of the other big names out there, and they're all almost identical with very small differences between them. why aren't we going into niche territories? You know, why isn't the MMORPG doing like the other entertainment industries where they have pockets of niche markets for each individual player? So that's what they're doing. They're making a game for this niche crowd. It's not going to be for everyone. They're not trying to make it for everyone. But there is a, in my opinion, growing opinion in the MMORPG genre of it's just getting stale. It's getting old. It's getting boring. The formula has run its course. We've seen the best it can do, and it's time to basically have a renaissance. It's time to go back to basics, go back to the drawing board, and let's see what would have happened had MMOs continued evolving in the way that they were pre-World of Warcraft. And that's what they're doing. So we're going to go back to the basics, right, with Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, with the group-centric, open-world type gameplay, community-driven, and everything in Pantheon. The more, you know, there's plenty of videos on my channel alone that you can see what I mean by this. I don't want to get into all the specifics, because what I'm really shooting for in this video is what type of gamer they're looking for. And that is basically a community-driven person. If you like MMORPGs and you want to log into one to meet people, to make memories, to have experiences in a game, in a fantasy world, then this is the game for you. If you want to just log on and you don't care who you play with, it might as well be NPCs for all you know or care, then there's plenty of options like that out there. And I would agree, for most people, the majority of players, that's going to be more convenient for them. And I'm not going to argue with that. That's fine. They have plenty of options. But for the people like me and like most of my viewers, we don't have anywhere to go. And now they're developing a game where we will. And hopefully what will happen is, just like he talked about in that clip, is more companies will see that you can make money, that it is a good investment to make an MMORPG more community-driven, more focused on group play, and then we can move forward from the way that the market was going originally, with new innovations, new ideas that keep this core community in mind. The problem is that so far, it seems that Pantheon is only pulling players from the old games, people who used to play EverQuest, Final Fantasy XI, Dark Age of Camelot, any of the older games, and those people are interested. And only some of those too, because like Dark Age of Camelot's a very PvP crowd, so I would say at least 75% of those players are probably more interested in a game like Camelot Unchained. But, you know, a lot of people that play Dark Age of Camelot back when it was new were very PvE focused. I remember there's a lot of people that only did the PvE, and it was very EverQuest based. But that's a whole nother subject. Basically, what we're going to have to do, what this comes down to, since Pantheon is a smaller development team, which is a good thing, because if it wasn't, we wouldn't get the game we want. Look at Vanguard, if you want an example, what happens when developers have a great vision, but they're owned by a large corporation that only wants maximum profit and will sacrifice the vision in order to get there. Thankfully, this is a team of developers at Visionary Realms, headed by Brad McQuaid, who are going to stick to this vision, and there's nothing going to stop them from making this vision come to fruition. So that's a good thing. But because it's a smaller development team, it has hurdles that a larger developer wouldn't have. We're not going to see TV commercials spamming TV. We may see some YouTube type commercials, but we're certainly not going to see it spammed all over TV, and it's probably not going to get a ton of coverage in the popular video game magazines. It'll probably be slightly covered in some of the MMO type websites, and that's about it. So it's really up to us, the community, that's already interested, that we already know how fun and how awesome this type of game is because we've already experienced it before. It's up to us to try to bring new players in, people that haven't even experienced that, because let's face it, they can't. Let's say they're like, I wonder what that kind of game's like. Let me go and download EverQuest. It's free to play now. I'll try it out, see what I like. They're not even going to get that experience now at all. Nothing like what we experienced on the EverQuest live servers. The closest they're going to get is if they go through the hassle of getting, EQ 1999 or what have you, and they're probably not going to do that. I mean, the majority of people looking for a game aren't going to go through all of that. That's kind of like a subcategory that they're probably not going to experience. So getting that level of experience from a new player coming from either A, no MMORPG history, or B, new MMORPG experience, they have no idea what they're in for. So it's up to us to kind of talk to them and try to tell them what kind of game that Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is going to be, introduce them to it, and get them interested. Word of mouth advertisement is going to be the #1 seller. And by the way, as Brad McQuaid has mentioned, that's what drove EverQuest, and EverQuest blew up. It was unbelievably more popular than they ever thought it would be, so much quicker than they possibly thought it would be. And that's the kind of success we want to see with Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. And not just the cluster of people that show up when the game first launches. You know, I see when it first launches, just because it's such a dry spell in the MMORPG genre as far as new games coming out. In my opinion, launch of the game, there's going to be millions of people on, but most of those people are going to leave because it's not going to be anything like what they thought it could be. You know, it's just a new MMO, let's try it out, and they're going to be like, whoa, what is all this? I don't want to, you know, do all this. So, but what we need is, we just need it when the dust settles, for everything to be nice and have a healthy community and enough players for us to play the game together, group, find guilds, etc. And Brad McQuaid touched on it a little bit. I'm going to let that end the video. I'm going to play that clip for you.
You know, reaching out to the person who did play years ago, they know what we're talking about, but reaching out to the newer player who didn't grow up on, you know, EverQuest and Ultima Online and Dark Age of Camelot, you know, it's a bit more difficult. So, you know, to answer that, we're stressing that we're not focusing on grinding and repetition. You know, I guess there's two ways to look at difficulty. There's the challenging part, which is a good kind of difficulty, and then there's the repetition, and then there's the fact that the older games often required 4, 6, 8 hours to play, you know, for a play session. And those are things that we are changing. We're trying to make sure that we don't have that repetitive grinding. We're trying to make sure that you can get a good sense of accomplishment after playing 1 or 2 hours, things like that. But in reaching out to those people, we're also really encouraging the people who have already pledged, who are already very interested. We're asking them and asking you guys to, you know, just word of mouth. Word of mouth is important. There was very little marketing with EverQuest early on, but it still spread very quickly. And that's because everyone was telling everybody else what an interesting and great game it was. So, you know, we need that help from our existing fan base to spread the word.
So there you go. There's your rally call from Brad McQuaid, lead developer of Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. So I have a little homework for you if you've made it this far in the video as I rambled on and on. Go out, find 3 of your friends, and convince them that Pantheon Rise of the Fallen is going to be a great game and that they're going to love it. Let's make this a reality. If we all go out and we find 3 people to play, then we can have a great, fantastic time when the game comes out. We'll all have plenty of groups, right? So anyway, guys, thanks for joining me for this video today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that this is something that can inspire you and get you more excited about Pantheon Rise of the Fallen and what we have to look forward to when the game does launch finally, whether that be 2020, 2021, or 2030, whenever it finally comes out. I will see you in game. And guys, if you enjoyed the video and you're not subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so as we continue talking more about Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. I'll have more videos coming soon as usual. And thank you guys, God bless, and happy gaming.